The Underground Railroad was a network made to lead enslaved African Americans towards their freedom, which was in the North and Canada. The exact beginning of the Underground Railroad is unclear, but the first recorded organized escapes were in 1786. It is believed that about 100,000 slaves escaped by using the Underground Railroad. Although it was very hard to escape, the slaves and the ones who gave them help thought of several ways to run away.
There were many people who helped the slaves. For example, one of the most famous conductors was Harriet Tubman. Harriet Tubman assisted around 300 African Americans throughout the 19 journeys she took to the North. With her bravery and her determination, she was able to free the slaves with her life.
There was one of two things I had a right to, liberty or death. If I could not have one, I'll have the other, for no man should take me alive. I should fight for my liberty as long as my strength lasted.
As more people began escaping, the slave owners passed the Fugitive Slave Act. This made escaping harder for the slaves. For example, before the law, whites who helped the slaves were not legally responsible for helping. But after the Fugitive Slave Act started, conductors could be fined $1,000 and go to jail for 6 months. Also, before the law was passed, many slaves felt safe in the North. But after the Fugitive Slave Act began, many slaves were caught and the slaves felt fear in the North. Many fled to Canada. However, the Fugitive Slave Act increased the number of volunteers and the abolitionists worked even harder.
As we said before, it was very hard for the slaves to run away without getting caught. Then how did they manage to do so? The slaves had many smart methods to go along the Underground Railroad safely. One of the methods was to follow the North Star to get a sense of direction, for they did not have anything that could tell them where they were going.
Another method was to have code names for many things so that no one could figure out what they were saying. They could keep many secrets this way. For example, the people who guided the slaves were called conductors, the slaves were called passengers or packages, and the places where the packages were delivered were called stations.
Another commonly used method was for the slaves to disguise themselves. A female would dress like a male, and the male would do the opposite. Fair-skinned slaves disguised themselves as whites, and others acted like they were delivering goods for their masters. These disguises were very simple, but it helped many slaves get away.
All the methods mentioned earlier were useful, but the stations were the number one thing that was useful to the slaves. These stations were usually 10 to 30 miles apart and provided shelter, food, and money for the refugees. Since they did not want the slave owners to find out where the stations were, they left a lantern or a candle out to signal the slaves that their house was a station. With the assistance and cooperation of many people, the slaves were able to reach the North, where they were able to live in what they believed was freedom.
From the time I was 14 years old, I used to think a great deal about freedom. It was my heart's desire. I could not keep it out of my mind. Many a sleepless night I have spent in tears because I was a slave. My heart ached to feel within me the life of liberty.
Although slavery has become illegal, there is still child labor going on in Pakistan. Just like the African Americans back then, these children are sold and bought by the factory owners. There was a boy named Iqbal Masih, who was a slave in a carpet factory. He sought help from a human rights organization and escaped from the factory. Later, he joined this organization and freed 3,000 enslaved children. The way he helped these children was like the way Harriet Tubman led the slaves into freedom.
Although it was very hard for the slaves to run away from the cruel slave owners, the slaves got a lot of help and worked hard together. Using their courage and intelligence, many of the slaves were able to reach the North. Like this, The Underground Railroad led many people towards freedom.